One of the reasons I think I got into anime as heavily as I did back in high school was just because of how much escapism it provides. As you may know, a very large chunk of anime that exists out there, especially the ones coming out in more recent years, have tended to revolve around high school. It's like nothing else is as important or matters in any way. But the thing is, the anime versions of high school and what I experienced during my years in high school are vastly different from one another. Now, this is partially because I never went to high school in Japan, so there are some cultural differences there, but also because high school in anime is more like a fantasy. Things happen in anime high school that just makes life more interesting, more fun. And these things never occur in real life. Kinda makes me not blame Haruhi for finding her school life so boring because, yeah, high school sucked. But then comes along Watamote, a show with a subtitle that is translated to, "No matter how you look at it, it's your guy's fault I'm not popular." Here we have brief glimpses of what high school is like for an anime character who happens to be a complete introvert, such as myself. And it is a stark contrast to the regular high school life that we are witness to in most anime. Ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Arcada, and welcome to Glass Reflection today. Watamote. Let's jam. Let me start off by saying that our main character, I find, is the most goddamn relatable character I have ever seen. Well, at least at the beginning, because her goal is simple. She is about to begin her high school debut, and high school is the epitome of life. This must be where everything starts to go her way. She'll make friends, get a boyfriend even, get good grades, and overall just be more than that shy, introverted kid she was in middle school. Oh, if only it were that simple. Her biggest problem, however, is that her social skills are more or less her dump stat. She doesn't know how to take care of herself, either mentally or physically. She has a negative attitude on life, and ultimately does not actively try to change the status quo, at least very successfully, and yet she questions why her life has not gotten better. Now, that may be a bit harsh on her. She does try, but at times it feels like her common sense is lacking in more ways than one. The average episode of Watamote has her either put into a scenario randomly or of her own design that she makes this plan for. The ultimate goal of the plan, of course, is to suddenly get exactly what she wants out of life. But then a thing happens, usually a wrench of some kind in her plans that was not accounted for, and then everything falls on its head, leaving her in some cases worse off than she was when she started. At least that's how I look at it as a fellow introvert. I won't say that she's an embarrassment to introverts everywhere because of her failings, mainly because they really nail the stereotype down well in a lot of ways. Most of her planning and inner thoughts are a combination of several things, like daydreaming, usually of the success she eventually hopes for, or just as a way for her to escape from what is actually happening to her. Or, as also happens, are extreme moments of anxiety, or just plain insanity as her mind tries to recover from whatever embarrassment she just experienced. That is one thing, though, that makes this show really hard to watch at times. Her moments of embarrassment usually all happen because of something she did of her own volition, something that your average introvert would never do. Because you see, let me clue you in on a little hint here of how introverts stay out of embarrassing situations. We don't get into them in the first place. She is, however, wanting to escape her introverted lifestyle, hence why she puts herself out in the open to begin with. But there always comes this point where she just clams up and has to run away. Run so far away. She has enough courage to start down the path that she wants to tread, but not enough to continue it and see it all the way through. What she really needed was a friend. True, she has her old friend from middle school, but that only seems to push her further into depression considering how much better off socially her friend has gotten in comparison. She needed more of a friend in school, though. It would have made things a lot more interesting and in some ways more realistic. It is somewhat hard to believe that she gets treated almost like she doesn't exist by the majority of her classmates. I would have thought there would have been at least a little more forced interaction that she would have had to get used to. And lastly, there is no real feeling of progression in this show at all. There is a status quo set in episode 1 that is still standing at the end of episode 12. This makes the show, for the most part, extremely episodic. Now, there are some story aspects that carry over, summer vacation, school festival, but really all that changes over the course of the entire show is the passage of time. Tomoko was just as introverted at the end as she was at the beginning, with absolutely no progress made. Like, I suppose you might get a more agreeable conclusion if you read the manga or something, but that's no excuse. Now this right here is what makes Watamote special. Its style is rather unique, not just in how it looks, but how it is presented throughout the whole show. The most obvious thing would be the way the show deals with varying colors and light sources, filling the screen with hexagons and other shapes to clearly mark the changes in scene. It's not just that though, but it's the little things that makes it all special as well. Various times the show gives us a top-down view of the scene. Effects take a massive ramp up for a few minutes, and filters are used to tell jokes. Speaking of, what's a comedy nowadays without references to other things, am I right? From the side mentions and dialogue to full-out copying of recognizable scenes, various homages, and other things, there's plenty here to make you think while watching.
I understood that reference.
Its particular style was one of the things that made the show tolerable, because those moments of embarrassment did nothing for me. Now, it's not all amazing. When the show is not going off on one of Tomoko's wild fantasy scenes, the designs are rather simple, to be honest. The only real sense of design we get is from Tomoko, because Tomoko is the one who has the biggest selection of expressions and visual emotions than any other character, with more or less everyone else being nothing more than your average background character. The opening is also something of note, for me personally, because it's not the style of music I usually like listening to. The varying styles of the show persist into the opening, changing from crude, stencil-like drawings to the various kinds of imagery that pair well with the song and lyrics. Ultimately, with Watamote, I found Tomoko's personality and her imagination to be the show's highlights. But I don't feel that there was enough in there to balance out the kind of narrative I just hate sitting through. I don't like watching embarrassing moments that could have been avoided, and I don't like Tomoko digging herself into a hole while trying to look cool. Having those things makes me want to turn off the show and watch something else. What saved it though is really just the presentation. I like the changes in animation style, and those few moments where Tomoko did not lose her common sense. She's otherwise a great character in a role that we don't get to see too much of, honestly. That doesn't mean though that I would be quick to recommend this show. Without a strong sense of progression, I'm really struggling to find a reason why anybody would actually want to actively watch this show all the way through. Because since there's no progression, it's not like you'd want to watch it to see any changes or anything in her character or in the world she inhabits. Perhaps you're watching it just to witness her failures, and if that's enough for you, that's fine. It just wasn't enough for me. And so, after much debate and social problems, experiences, and other things that I would rather pretend never exist, but then somehow remember them later on and feel like killing myself because that's what they feel like, I have to award, unfortunately, Watamote with a fuck it rating. As an experiment, I appreciated it. As something to just experience, it was okay, but the majority of it is not something that I would actively push on anyone. The most I would tell most people to watch is possibly the first couple of episodes, just because of the scenario and the character herself are worth just kind of looking at, but it's not worth the rest of the show. At the time of this video, Watamote has been licensed and is available on DVD and Blu-ray from Sentai Filmworks, I believe. Yes, Sentai Filmworks, those people. And also, if you don't feel like ponying up that kind of cash, you can also watch the entire show in sub, I believe, on Crunchyroll, as well as over on Hulu if you happen to live in America and, you know, can do the Hulu thing. That's something I can't do because Canada and stuff. There are ways to get around that, but that was a really weird noise that I just made, and I apologize for it. Anyway, for alternate anime recommendations, I point you towards Welcome to the NHK, a very, shall we say, a little more dark and serious take on the very same scenario that we're looking at here. Just possibly a little bit more depressing and not so much in the comedic vein. However, if you do want the comedic vein, Lucky Star is also an option. Remove the embarrassment, add a lot of moe, and have everything look very cartoonish. Yeah, that's Lucky Star right there. So between those two, you should hopefully find something to your liking. And that's it from me. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Follow me on Twitter if you feel so inclined. And hey, if you like what I do here and feel like helping out, please consider going and checking out my Patreon page And if you feel it within your heart, also consider donating. A very special thanks to Ryan McAndywar for donating already. I should come up with something really cool to do now. Something really cool. But I can't think of anything. So I could just try to play this off as something from, like, Watamote, where she would try to do something and then just fail of embarrassment and then just not do anything and just, you know, we're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. Stay frosty.